Ladies and gentlemen, the sole visionary behind the Phoenix system, my daughter Chloe. The applause was thunderous. I stood frozen as my mother Victoria handed the microphone to my sister, a gambling addict who couldn't code a single line. Victoria leaned in close to me, her smile never faltering, and delivered the blow that erased 12 years of my life. "Don't make a scene, Riley," she whispered, her voice cold as steel. "You're just the technician. Technicians don't get ownership. Now smile, or you won't even get a reference letter." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my security badge, and set it gently on the glass table. It made a soft click that nobody heard over the cheering. Then I turned around and walked out. I walked past the investors, past the champagne, and past the $1.4 billion worth of technology that, unbeknownst to them, was about to become very, very expensive paperweights. Before I tell you what happens when a technician decides to stop fixing the engine, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? And have you ever had someone take credit for your life's work? I sat in my 12-year-old sedan, the engine cold, listening to the muffled bass of the celebration music thumping through the garage concrete. My name is Riley. I am 34 years old, and for the last dozen years, I have been a ghost. Inside that building, they were toasting to the future of Phoenix Biotech. They were celebrating the Class 3 robotic exoskeletons that could let a paralyzed woman climb mountains. But they didn't know how those machines actually worked. They didn't know that every single line of code, every safety protocol, and every FDA compliance log bore my digital fingerprint. My sister Chloe, the visionary, Chloe couldn't even spell compliance. She was a gambling addict who treated the company accounts like her personal casino. I spent my 20s cleaning up her messes. I worked 20-hour days fixing her errors, covering her tracks, and ensuring that our technology didn't accidentally harm someone. I signed every safety log because Chloe didn't have the license. I was the safety net that caught her every time she fell. You might ask why I stayed. Why did I let them use me for 12 years? It's a question I asked myself every time I drove home alone while they went on vacations I funded. The truth isn't simple. It's what psychologists call the normalized cruelty. My mother, Victoria, didn't break me in a day. She chipped away at me slowly, methodically, since I was a child. She taught me that love was conditional. She taught me that my value wasn't inherent, it was functional. I was valuable only when I was useful. I remember when I was 13, I won the regional science fair. I ran home, bursting with pride, holding the gold medal. Victoria didn't even look at it. She just pointed to Chloe, who was crying over a broken tablet. "Fix it, Riley," she had said. "Your sister is the statue. You are the pedestal. Without you, she falls, so don't you dare move." That was the lesson. I wasn't the art. I was the support structure. I wasn't the star. I was the gravity that kept their world from spinning apart. They trained me to be invisible. They trained me to believe that being the good daughter meant setting myself on fire to keep them warm. They thought that training would last forever. They thought I would fade away quietly because that's what pedestals do. They stay still while the statue gets the glory. But they forgot one thing. If you remove the pedestal, the statue doesn't just look less impressive, it crashes to the ground and shatters into a million pieces. I looked at my hands. These were the hands that wrote the code. These were the hands that secured the safety of thousands of patients. And these were the hands that held the only key to the kingdom. My phone buzzed in my lap. The screen lit up with a notification I had received every single day for 4,380 days. It was time. The vibration against my thigh was a feeling I knew better than my own heartbeat. 4 p.m. The daily automated prompt from the Phoenix Central server. I pulled the phone out. The screen glowed with a simple white notification box. Biometric handshake required. Level 6 administrator. Authorized daily operations. For 12 years, I had pressed the green accept button without thinking. I pressed it on Thanksgiving morning while my family ate without me. I pressed it during my cousin's wedding reception while hiding in the restroom. I pressed it while I had pneumonia, while I was on dates, and while I was burying my grandfather. That button was the leash that kept the billion-dollar dog walking in a straight line. Victoria thought she had stripped me of my power when she took my plastic security badge. She thought firing meant I was gone. She forgot that she hadn't just built a company, she had built a kingdom of Class 3 medical devices that required a licensed monarch to function, and she had just exiled the queen. I propped my tablet on the steering wheel. The company was live streaming the event for the global markets. On the screen, Victoria was laughing, clinking her glass against the lead investor's flute. Behind her, the Phoenix Mark V prototype leg was performing a delicate ballet sequence, its titanium joints moving with fluid grace. It was a masterpiece of engineering. My masterpiece. Zero ownership, I whispered. I looked down at my phone. My thumb hovered over the screen. The green button meant safety. It meant keeping the peace. It meant swallowing the insult, going home, and hoping they might throw me a few crumbs of gratitude later. The red button meant war. I didn't hesitate. I didn't shake. I pressed decline. On my phone, a new message flashed. Authorization denied. Initiating emergency protocol. I looked back at the tablet on the live stream. The ballet sequence stopped instantly. The Phoenix leg didn't just slow down, it froze mid-movement, its joints rigid, locked in a protective rigor mortis. The sudden silence in the boardroom was louder than the applause had been. Victoria frowned, tapping her glass again, thinking it was a pause in the program. She turned to the prototype and waved her hand, expecting the motion sensors to pick her up. The legs stayed dead. Then came the sound. A low, rhythmic pulse began to blare from the display console. It was the FDA-mandated alarm for an unsupervised device. Beep, beep, beep. The investors stopped drinking. They exchanged confused glances. Chloe rushed over to the console, her face pale. I watched her furiously tapping the screen, trying to bypass the lock. She looked like a child trying to fly a spaceship by banging on the dashboard. A large red banner scrolled across the presentation screen behind them, replacing the Phoenix logo. It was crisp, clear, and impossible to ignore. System locked down. Unauthorized operation. Licensed supervisor missing. All units disabled. Victoria's smile vanished. She spun around, her eyes scanning the room, scanning the crowd, looking for the one person she had just thrown out like trash. I took a sip of the lukewarm water bottle in my cup holder. The show was just beginning. The silence in my car was shattered by the ringtone I had assigned to my mother, a jarring, repetitive siren. The name Victoria flashed on the dashboard screen like a threat. I picked up. I didn't say hello. I didn't have to.
Turn it back on. Her voice was so loud it distorted the speaker. I could hear the chaos in the background, investors shouting, chairs scraping, the relentless beep of the FDA alarm. Turn it back on right now, Riley. I know you did this. I know you rigged it. I leaned back in my seat, watching the live stream on my tablet. On screen, Chloe was sweating through her expensive dress, frantically mashing buttons on a console that was completely dead. I didn't rig anything, Victoria, I said, my voice calm, almost bored. I told you I'm just the technician, and since I don't work there anymore, I can't authorize the safety protocols. Don't give me that technical nonsense, she screamed. You sabotaged the fleet. You planted a virus. I will sue you for everything you have. I will bury you so deep you'll never work in this industry again. It's not a virus, I corrected her. It's a feature. Specifically, it's the 24-hour supervisor mandate required for Class 3 medical devices. Without a licensed administrator to biometrically sign the logs, the system defaults to safe mode to prevent patient injury. It's not sabotage, Mom. It's the law. I don't care about the law, she roared. I have investors here. I have a billion-dollar deal on the table. Fix it. There was a scuffling sound, and then my father's voice came on the line. He was crying, that breathless, high-pitched sob he used whenever he wanted to manipulate me. Riley, please, Martin begged. How could you do this? How could you be so cruel to your sister? This was her big night. She needs this win. Why are you trying to destroy this family? I closed my eyes for a second. There was the classic pivot. When threats didn't work, they switched to guilt. They didn't care that Victoria had just fired me and erased my existence. They only cared that I was ruining the party. "I didn't destroy the family, Dad," I said. "You did, when you sat there and watched Mom give my life's work to a gambling addict. You chose your side." "We gave you a job," he shrieked, the mask slipping. "We fed you. We let you play scientist in that lab. And this is how you repay us? By embarrassing us?" "Give me the phone." Victoria snatched it back. Her breathing was ragged. "Listen to me, you ungrateful little brat. I want the override code right now. Give me the password and maybe I won't call the police." I looked at my hand again, the thumb that had pressed decline. "There is no password, Victoria," I said. "It's a biometric key. It scans the unique vascular pattern of a licensed engineer's thumbprint, specifically my thumbprint." "Then come back here," she demanded. "Get in here and unlock it." "I can't do that," I said. "Why the hell not?" "Because you fired me," I said. "And as you so clearly pointed out, technicians don't get ownership. So unless you're planning to sign over 50% of the company in the next 5 minutes, my thumb stays with me." "You can't do this," she stammered, the reality finally hitting her. "You can't just walk away with the keys to a billion-dollar company." "I just did," I said. "Good luck with the investors, Mom. I hear they hate surprises." I tapped the red end call icon on the screen. The connection severed. The siren stopped. On the tablet, I watched as the lead investor stood up, buttoned his jacket, and walked out of the room. Victoria chased after him, grabbing his arm. Desperate. Pathetic. I put the car in gear. I wasn't going home. I was going back. Not to fix it, but to finish it. I walked back into the lobby of Phoenix Biotech. The security guard, old Mr. Patterson, couldn't look me in the eye. He just buzzed me through the turnstile with a shaking hand. I took the elevator up to the executive floor. I expected lawyers. I expected a settlement offer. I expected Victoria to slide a piece of paper across the table with a number that had too many zeros, trying to buy back her dignity. I was naive. I forgot that when you corner a narcissist, they don't negotiate, they annihilate. The boardroom doors were open. The atmosphere inside was heavy, suffocating. The investors were still there, sitting in tense silence. Chloe was leaning against the wall, scrolling on her phone, looking bored. Victoria stood at the head of the table. She wasn't sweating anymore. She wasn't screaming. She was adjusting her jewelry, looking calm. Too calm. "I'm here," I said, stepping into the room. "Let's talk about the ownership I was denied." Victoria looked up. She didn't smile. She looked at me with a performance of such profound sadness that for a second I almost believed it myself. "I'm sorry, Riley," she said softly. "I really didn't want it to end like this." "And like what?" "Like this." She nodded toward the side door. It burst open. 4 men in windbreakers stormed in. They didn't look like corporate lawyers. They moved with aggressive precision of law enforcement. On the back of their jackets, in bold yellow letters, FBI. My blood ran cold. "Ryling Grant," the lead agent barked, crossing the room in 3 strides. "Hands where I can see them." "What is this?" I asked, backing up. "I didn't do anything." "We have a sworn affidavit from the CEO of Phoenix Biotech alleging corporate espionage, wire fraud, and the deployment of malicious ransomware," the agent said. He grabbed my wrist, spinning me around. I looked at Victoria. She was shaking her head, playing the role of the devastated mother to perfection. She held up a thick manila folder. "She rigged the system," Victoria told the agents, her voice trembling with fake emotion. "We have the logs. She planted a virus to hold the company hostage. She demanded 50% of the shares to unlock it. It's extortion." The cold steel of the handcuffs clicked around my wrists. The sound echoed in the silent room. I stood there, physically restrained, while the people I had served for over a decade watched me. The lead investor looked at me with pure disgust. To them, I wasn't the architect anymore. I was just a bitter, unstable ex-employee trying to burn down the building. "I didn't plant a virus," I said, my voice shaking despite my best efforts. "It's a safety protocol. Check the code." "Save it for the judge," the agent said, tightening the cuffs. Chloe pushed off the wall. She walked over to me, grinning. She leaned in close, so close I could smell the expensive champagne on her breath. I told you, sis, mom's always one step ahead. You think you can steal my company? Enjoy prison. My father, Martin, was sitting in the corner. He wasn't crying anymore. He was looking at the floor, refusing to witness the monster they had created. Victoria, I said, looking directly at my mother, you know this is a lie. You know I didn't rig it. We tried to help you, Riley, Victoria said loudly, performing for the agents. We gave you a job. We gave you a purpose, and you betrayed us.
The agent shoved me forward. Let's go. As they marched me toward the door, my mind was racing. They had planned this. They knew they couldn't beat me technically, so they decided to bury me legally. They framed me. They turned my own safety measures into a weapon. I looked at the prototypes, still frozen, still flashing red. Victoria thought arresting me solved her problem. She thought if I was in a cell, she could force me to give up the keys. She didn't realize that by putting me in handcuffs, she hadn't just framed me. She had just walked directly into a federal trap she didn't even know existed. The agent read me my rights, but I kept my eyes on the flashing message behind Victoria. System Lockdown FDA Protocol 21 CFR 11. Victoria was glowing with victory. She had taken my work, erased me from the company, and now planned to jail me to finish the job. But she forgot the lead investor. Wait, the investor said, pointing at the screen. That error code isn't a virus, it's federal compliance. I told the agent to search 21 CFR Part 11. When he checked, the truth unfolded fast. Removing me, the only licensed regulatory supervisor, shut the facility down by law and exposed the company for operating illegally, a felony. I told him to review the logs. They weren't hacks, they were my safety audits, and behind them was the real scandal, Chloe overriding limits and falsifying data to boost the stock price. That was why they fired me. The investor saw the evidence and exploded. $1 billion investment had been built on fraud. Moments later, the handcuffs came off my wrists and snapped onto Victoria's and Chloe's. 4 months later, Phoenix Biotech was gone, seized, liquidated, and bankrupt. Chloe pled out and went to prison. My father abandoned ship and begged for money. I ignored him. I returned only to buy equipment for my new firm. Victoria was there, out on bail, screaming at movers, stripping her office. And it finally hit me. Her power had never been real. It was just money and volume. Without cash, she was no one. She tried to command me one last time. I walked away. Outside, sunlight hit my face as I unlocked the servers for my new business. My name, my license, my future. Sometimes the only way forward is to let the wrong system collapse and build your own.